Welcome to the George Lynch Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Legendary Gear, the game call company that is legend by design. Well, folks, we're sitting in the second week of October. Diane and I had a great first week September, went up to Yorkton, Saskatchewan, actually north of that, with our friend B. Latane and met some friends up there. But we had an awesome, Greg Too Good, we did his TV show with the Bushnell's Prairie Pursuit. Met his son Jacob, but we had 3 great, phenomenal days of Canada goose hunting. I think we killed 150 honkers in 3 morning hunts. Basically, I did all the calling. Oh man, I tell you what, I was whipped, and I'll get on that story. But anyway, I got an old friend that's back on with us again today. He's back on again today because it's that time of year that we all got the itch. We're pulling the stick and strings out. We're checking trail cameras. We're getting ready to really do our mock scrapes up. But anyway, my good friend BRITT Huey with Prime G5. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you too. As people can see, I've been the last couple of years been shooting Prime. I got my Revix 6, and then I have the inline 3. And I'm telling you what, Britt, the inline 3, I was really impressed with how well I shot it compared to the longer bows. And you and I had both talked, but there was one thing that to me to get used to it, it had that higher let off, which in hunting was good and stuff, but and it never really caused me a problem. It was just something that you had to get used to. Well, the new inline or the Revix series, I'm telling you what, that wheel is going to be hard to beat. It's a very comfortable, easy pulling, but it's a pleasure to shoot, and it's easy to let back up, if you had to retract your shot. But I'll tell you what, my Revix 6, now the Revix 4 would probably been the perfect match for someone over 6 foot like me, was plenty of bow, plenty stable. But I'm telling you, my Revix 6, I'm not, I used to shoot 3D a year ago, but that's been years. And so I'm the kind of guy that, I was blessed to be around good people like you and some professional archers in my life that, I've always learned from. And, I've always been one to practice hard. But I've never been someone who practiced long distance and kind of bragged about my long distance shooting, because I always said, the difference between bow hunting and archery is archery is how far I can get away from the bullseye and hit it. And bow hunting is how close I can get and not miss.
And not miss. Exactly.
Yeah. So that is kind of a nutshell. But the thing about shooting long distance, and we did the same thing with our recurves, and the old timers did the same thing with recurves. They shot a lot of long distance because it would amplify your errors that you made.
Oh, for sure.
And so if I was shooting clean at 60 yards, I mean, when you get up to 20 and 25 yards, it's like a chip shot, following through.
But too close.
And with I always thought, when I could shoot pretty good with a good bow out to 50 yards, and on a good day. And I'm telling you, with this Revix 6, I am consistently probably in a 3-inch group at 60 yards, with my hunting setup. And that to me, and I'm consistent, I'm confident. The bow is just, it locks solid.
Well, that's a lot of it, right? Like when you shoot something, you get into your rhythm. You get the confidence, because the confidence is where you get the accuracy. Because if you don't think you're going to hit it, you're not going to hit it.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I used to teach guys when it came to baseball. I taught a lot of kids how to hit a baseball. And that was one of the mindset was so critical coming off the bat. If you think you're going to strike out, you're going to strike out.
Well, if you're scared of that pitcher, it's over.
That's right. So, I always kind of had that way of mentality when it came to hunting, because at a young age, I really didn't have someone who took me by the hand. There were several people. I just happened to have the interest. I had uncles and, family that did hunt when I was younger. But my serious, when it came to bow hunting, It was more of research on my own, and then you're finding out. And the reason it was so cool to me is because there wasn't really a whole lot of books. We didn't have DVDs. We didn't have any of that when I first started. So I was trying to read every outdoor life, magazine that I could. Bow Hunter magazine, MR James had started, and you read every article, and I try to put myself, and you learn the best. But I'll never forget, shot my first deer off a plywood platform nailed in a crotch of a tree.
Oh yeah, nails in a 2x4.
That's right. But it was the first thought of going up, getting off the ground. And you just like I said, you didn't. We look today, and you look at YouTube, and there's so much instructional that people are learning today. It's just gone crazy. And people in the archery world. We're in the game call business, and to try to stay up on things and be ahead of things, and it's a job. It's really, especially today, it's really challenging in today's times than it was a few years back. I mean, it's between help and supply chain, and ever since COVID, things have been just gone. This world's gone crazy. But in the archery world, man, I'm looking at it. These poor guys with bows, they got to constantly. They're working, a year or two ahead on stuff
or 3 or 4, yeah.
And they have to, and you got to respect that, which kind of were the guys in the gun business. They've kind of had it good. Benelli's pretty much got the same shotgun that they've had. Remington's got the same shotgun. There's a few changes in here and there, with shotguns and stuff, but it's pretty much nothing has been as drastic in the hunting industry as what bows have taken place. To look back at one of my custom recurves sitting on the shelf compared to one of my new prime compounds, it's amazing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'd say here, and they make crossbows that are just friggin' amazing, and that it's just but. With me, and I've hunted with a crossbow. That when they damaged my hand and my wrist and all that stuff, I had to hunt with a crossbow. I wouldn't have been able to be in the woods that year, and that was a beautiful thing about a crossbow. If you are, for me personally, it allowed me to be back out there. Years ago, I was strongly against a crossbow, but I was a younger man, and thought that the world was defiant, and the crossbow was good. But I will tell you this. I feel that I'm better, like with this compound, and not that at 60 yards or the distance that, I can shoot either one, but I guess you would call it my experience level was not very intense with a crossbow, holding it felt different in my hands and stuff.
It feels odd.
It feels like it doesn't feel natural to me.
No, it's not.
And kind of carry it. But here's what, for me, you have my comfort zone with shooting with a traditional bow. My comfort zone is shooting with a compound, and then whatever the crossbow is. But I thought, because in my head, and it isn't anything that I would say the crossbow companies have done. It's just in my head, and people talk about, they should be outlawed because they're so much easier and blah, blah, blah. And you hear this. So in my head, I think that I wasn't, I was more tend to take a not good shot where maybe, because I've lost 1 or 2 bucks with a crossbow, and 1 buck that I can remember. It was a shot that, I took. It was a 40-yard shot. Way the deer came in and entered that woods.
Did you force it?
Well, here's the mindset. I had deer in front of me. And I had deer out, and it was a very hilly situation. So once you got past this 40-yard mark, they'd come out, either go straight west, which is beyond my sight, or if they turned and came, they'd feed up on the corner and down in the swamp by me, and but you didn't have much room. And so there was a good buck. He was a mid 160s. And I tried to, it was probably a week earlier when I first spotted him. When he came out, he went, as soon as he hit the field, straight west with the doe. and everything kind of mingled over to me. Well, I'm sitting this night, and it's a beautiful night. Barometric pressure, and I'll talk about that. 30.1 and rising, and
Yep.
it was just gorgeous. And I'm sitting there, and I got deer within. I could take my arrow, whack them on the head. I got them I got them all over. And this guy comes out, and he's got a doe in front of him, and he pops out that same trail, and he's hanging just like this. But because of the hill, I can only see this. I couldn't even see his legs. And he was just over that like this. And I had ranged him, and it was 39 yards. So I'm like, he's probably going to come right on around. And even though he's going to go down the saddle and I can't see him, I have to trust, like the other day, he's going to work his way up this hill and then back down and come around to me. Or he's going to just do like he did the other day and head out. And I made the choice because the next day was our opening gun season. And so I sat there and I ranged him, and man, I just shot this bow yesterday at 40 yards. Man, I'm shooting a crossbow. I'll smoke this turd.
I can do it.
Yeah, I can do it. And dude, I got the death grip, the bog death grip on there, and I'm sitting in that thing, and I get that right there, and boom, I shoot. He takes off and runs, and then edge of the field goes in. And I'm thinking, man, I shot him. The arrow's going to be, the bolt's going to be in the field with blood all over it. And so I waited till almost dark, and I get up there, and there's no blood. I don't see any. I finally find the bolt, and it's just got a few strips of red on each vein. And then it was a competitor's broadhead. I don't want to mention it, but the blade broke. It didn't do any good. The blade had completely shattered and busted off. And so I never got that buck. There wasn't one drop of blood. I think the broadhead failed me, but it's still, I'm quite not sure. I think I might've made maybe a higher hit.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely, like I said, there wasn't any. I lost that buck, but I was sitting here into myself. I said, you know what? If I'd have had my compound in my hand, I guarantee it, or definitely with my recurve in my hand, I would never taken that shot.
No, you wouldn't have forced it.
No, I said, you know what? If he doesn't come this way, then it's fine. But I'm going to put all my cards and smoke him at 15 and
right.
But that's the only what I'm saying with the crossbow. But to that again, shooting this Revic 6, I have never shot so well and held so well at longer distances that I have with this bow. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't feel, for me personally, because I'm not a crossbow professional, that Paul Vicunis could shoot the eyes out of a crossbow. I'm sure you can shoot the eyes out of a crossbow. I mean, you sold them, and you're very educated. To me, limited knowledge. So I feel that I can shoot this compound. I feel just as well with that than I do the crossbow. Probably feel better because I don't have to carry the tripod and everything else,
it's a different style of hunting, and what I tell guys and people is a crossbow is a tool. When you need a hammer, you need a hammer. When you need a Phillips screwdriver, you need a Phillips screwdriver. There's times where if it's 5 degrees outside and I want to put some clothes on and I can't really shoot my bow very well, I'm going to hunt with a crossbow.
Yeah.
So point. It's a tool. What do I prefer? Well, I prefer a vertical bow because I'm a bow guy. I'm an archery guy. And I think, you alluded to the fact that maybe you forced that shot a little bit because you thought you were maybe over-equipped, a little bit more. I think what guys got to realize is just because it has a trigger doesn't make it a gun.
It doesn't make it.
It's still just a bow.
Yeah.
Yes, it has a stock. You put it on your shoulder. You look through a scope. But it's still shooting an arrow. I don't care if it's 450 feet a second or 500 feet a second. It's not a bullet. It's an arrow. So that's the biggest thing that we run into.
And here's a good comparison for that point that you're talking about. You know, a fast crossbow. I mean, crossbows are doing over 400 feet a second today. You know, so in the archery world, that's mojoing. But in the gun
Huge.
world, you take a slug that probably shoots 1,200 feet a second. You know, that's considered slow. You had a high-powered
Right.
rifle that can shoot 3,000 feet a second. It's something else. But so, you know, 1,200 feet a second is slow for a gun. Yet a crossbow shooting 400, and we think, you know, there's definitely a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's inevitably every show I go to, every event, not every one, but a lot of times guys are like, well, how far can I shoot a deer with this? I don't know. Like, is it made of cardboard? Like, because if it doesn't move, you can shoot it really far. But there's the ethics question of, you know, these are live animals. They do move around. They walk. They take steps. You know, a crossbow really, in my mind, is a bow. So would I shoot a deer? You know, and I'm going to catch some flack for this, but would I shoot a deer at 60 yards with my bow? Well, yeah, I probably would. You know, depending on the situation, head down in the beans, completely relaxed, no scent, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Can I shoot 60? Yes, I can. Um, you know, so I look at the crossbow the same way. Like, how far would I shoot a crossbow? Well, it depends on the situation, for one. But I'm not going to shoot it any further than I would my regular bow.
Good
It's
point.
it's it's
Yeah.
firing the same projectile. Yes, it's only 20 inches long. My arrow's 28 inches long, but I'm shooting that out of the same kind of device. Yes, it's faster. It's got a trigger. Is it easier to shoot, especially for kids? Um, Past prime, you know, guys, we're gonna both be there, dude. We're gonna be. I hope I'm 75 years old sitting in a blind. You
Yeah.
know, but am I gonna be able to pull my bow? I don't know. Well, then I'm gonna shoot a crossbow.
Absolutely. And like I said, you know, being able to experience the woods, not being able to go out there because I couldn't, you know,
You said it last time
physically.
we were on a call. You're like, when the sun comes up and you see the colors and the sun comes through the trees, does it matter what's hanging in the tree?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't
Doesn't
change that
matter.
sunrise. Doesn't change the color of the sunrise at all. What equipment you're hunting with, it doesn't change the heartbeat to me. You know, watching a good mature buck come in, or whatever, watching turkeys and whatever in God's creation, sitting there all day. You know, everything that we take in the woods, it just turns our freaking crank. Everything that's out there, and you know what I'm talking about. You know, everything that, you know, from sitting there in the morning hearing a gobbler to, you know, whatever, you know, hearing a buck grunting and being out in that woods and watching a bobcat slip through or whatever, your heart, you know, that it just, that's the whole day. And if you're sitting there measuring your hunt based on what you grab and hold for a
Mhm.
few seconds and then pull back and let go, that's just a point milliseconds of your whole day, of your whole experience.
For
So
sure.
to me, it's narrow-minded to sit here and say, you know what, you're not a man unless you're shooting this, and you're not a man unless you're shooting that. It's like, come on, give me a break. You know,
So, you know, we get into, we fight amongst ourselves, right? We're both traditional shooters, shoot recurves, longbows, and get great joy out of shooting a recurve, you know, shooting traditional. Um, I don't know. It's like you said previously, it's about the day and being in the stand, being with stuff all around you. It's not about what you grab. You know, Lisa and I have conversations about travel and going on vacations, and I'm a guy that, you know, if I'm going to go see the Grand Canyon, I'm going to look at it for 3 seconds and go, yeah, that's cool. I saw a
let's
picture,
go.
right? I already knew
Okay,
what it
let's
looked like.
go.
But
Pizza.
yeah, so, but when I go somewhere to hunt, you know, we went to Montana last year and turkey hunted and shot some Miriams. When I go someplace different, I want to be a part of it. Like, I want to hunt so I can be against a tree or see those things, and I feel like I'm a part of it. I don't feel like, and not to pick on anybody that goes on vacation. Like, let's go see X. like I see it and I'm like, okay, that's cool. But now I want to be a part of it. So if I'm going to go to South Dakota, I'm not going to go look at Mount Rushmore. I want to be in the hills chasing turkeys and be part of the landscape, so that's what it is for me. And back to our initial point of what weapon you choose, I don't care. Shoot a bow, shoot a crossbow, shoot a 410 for turkey, shoot a 12 gauge for turkey. I don't care. Just go out and be part of it.
I agree. Touche. You know what? Let's get back on prime real quick, and then we're going to switch to broadheads. But on prime, from what the standard prime that people used to remember, the dual cam type, and then the inline. We went to the inline, which did away with that dual cam. So that was like a huge jump for prime.
Big transition, yeah.
Yeah, big transition. Yet, I still think they made another big transition when they went from the inline to the Revics. It's just how they both, again, like I said, they both shot good. It's just, I think the smoothness and everything that the new bow has, to me, was, I don't know much about the speed, the speed things. It just looks, how fast you're flying. Fast. I mean,
yeah, fast enough.
Fast enough, but it just seems like they made a huge jump on that. And did you see, what was the feedback with your dealers this year?
Well, so I guess the biggest transition from the inline to the RevX was an inline cam. This is a Core 4 cam. So going back, a couple of years, they had the parallel cams. That was to fight camling. They did some things that with the cables, how they crossed over on the draw that really made the cam stay in line, and that's why the name inline. They transferred that over to RevX. So the short answer is, it's a little nicer bow. I think the inline actually had too much let off. Guys want to not hold a lot of weight, but there's got to be a certain amount of pressure for that string to come out of your release. And, there's a, if you look at target guys, they're shooting hold weights that are far higher than hunters. They're shooting 15, 16, 18 pounds of hold weight, and if I got a 60-pound bow with 90% let off, I'm holding 6.
Yeah.
That's maybe not enough. I thought the inline was a little too aggressive on the let off. I thought it was a little too much let off.
I agree with that. I have to say that because I just pulled my inline out and was shooting it a couple of days ago with my Revics. And, because you're shooting that Revics, when I shoot in my follow through, I think that's where it's cleaner. It's cleaner. My follow through is very good right now. And I think that has helped. And that's something you guys should always realize, that, aiming is only half of it. The second part is what you do after that shot that pertains to accuracy. So you always want to try to focus just as much on my second half as I do my first half, especially shooting at animals. And so that's one thing I noticed when you're shooting that Revics. It's so smooth. And so, it has that, you're holding a little bit more weight. So it's, I got that inline going, boom, shooting.
And listen, it's still plenty of let off. It's an 84-ish% let off, 82, 84. But it's not 90. And that's just a little bit.
I shot the inline after that, and I could tell a difference that I really had to focus on my follow through. Wasn't for sure. Quite as natural. Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%. Well, because you're not holding with as much tension,
right?
So there's a point of diminishing returns with let off that once you get past a certain point, that let off is actually hurting you and not helping you. All of us, when we shoot traditional bows, obviously we don't hold them back very long because we're holding 50 pounds.
Right.
But, everybody's got a different sight picture. My pin moves all over the place. Like I don't hold still, but somehow it still finds the middle. But there's a couple of things coming this year, and I can't go into detail. but there is some additional features on the new bow, which has a different name, but it's kind of the same. And I can't say any more than that. So there's a couple of features there. There's some adjustments. It's the same base cam with the Core 4 cam. But there's a couple other features that'll help guys to personalize their bow as far as let off and draw length and things of that nature. So, but
Awesome.
in totality, it's very close to a RevX. So think about you go out and buy a new truck or you go out and buy a new car. It's the same base car, but maybe you got satellite radio on the next one. You know, so there's some options there that you can personalize it a little bit better.
You heard it there, folks. They're going to have Siri on your bow now.
Yeah, you can talk to your bow.
Hey, Siri, how is the moon phase for today?
Right.
Hey,
what
George,
is Siri? What is the barometric pressure?
Glad you asked, George. It is 30.1. Better have your tail out there hunting, George. But where were we? Oh,
we're going to broadheads.
See a little bit of change next year, but pretty much kind of like the Revix. But
yeah, so the platform's the same. The base platform's the same. There's going to be a couple of features that are common that are kind of out there right now. So there's going to be some adjustment as far as, like I said, let off, micro tuning, you know, for draw length and that kind of thing. So they're going to launch mid-November-ish. The dealers will start seeing bows early November, and then they'll do the launch. If I looked up a calendar, I could tell you the day. I think it's like the 13th or 14th, but I'm not 100%. But yeah, mid-November we'll have the new bows. The dealers will have them, and I think it's going to be a really good year because we're kind of going into year 2 of the RevX, which was a polished version of the inline. So really that evolution to get that bow to where we want it to be with the same features, center grip. You know, you noticed immediately when you shot your bow, it didn't feel like it want to fall out of your hand, you know, because that grip's in the center. It's not top heavy. The Quest line, which was, I'll say, the more affordable version of Prime, there's some changes there. We're going to have a bow in the Prime line that is, I don't even know if I can say the price point, well under $1,000.
Yeah.
So 70, 75 riser, same cams. I can't give too much away, but you know, a guy is going to be able to go buy a Prime and get it set up and not have to pay $2,500 for a bow package.
Right.
This is going to be a premium bow, well under $1,000.
And you think, in regarding to that, and it's probably a tough question for you to ask, but you know, I can remember back years ago when with $300 compound was an expensive compound. I remember you probably don't even remember the Oregon bow that was made out in Oregon, but that had the carbon limbs and all this fancy aluminum wheels, and maybe it was stainless wheels. Anyway, that bow at the time, it was the first one I think to crest the $400 range, and we thought, wow, bows are getting crazy. And then we look at today. So do you think that to keep up in that market, that high competitive market of having the next best, and archers are the worst. I mean, it's always wanting the newest and the best, the next best thing, whether if it's only 5 feet a second faster, it's 5 feet a second faster than anybody. So do you think that we tried to go too far with these, making the bow?
I don't know that we tried to go too far. I think we're at an apex right now so it's not about speed, it's not about price, it's about efficiency. How efficient is this bow? If I pull 60 pounds, how much of that 60 pounds can I get into my arrow? And you're talking about Oregon bows. We can talk about, Golden Eagle Evolution from the mid 90s, which was a probably 70% efficient bow. So if
Yeah,
you're pulling 100 pounds, you were getting 70 pounds of energy out of the bow. Right now, we're in the mid high 90s. Like, I don't know what else they're going to do.
I
Like,
know.
I remember standing and working in a shop in the mid 90s, and guys were wanting to go elk hunting. They're shooting 70 pounds, big, heavy, 2216 or 2315 aluminum arrows. And we're trying to get them to 55 foot pounds of kinetic energy on a 70 or 75 pound bow. Well, my bow today is 60 pounds and shoots like 59.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's
The
what we've
efficiency.
been able to
That
do.
and the carbon arrow.
Oh,
Don't you think the carbon arrows made a big difference in that too, in the efficiency?
well, I think the biggest thing that's made a difference, and I've had this conversation with a couple of guys, and I don't know if in general people that are outside of the industry think about this, but I really feel like the biggest steps we've made in archery is in string and cable technology. So we used to shoot toucan bows. The strings would stretch. Remember the rubber tube on your
Oh
peep
yeah,
sight? You got to have a
yeah.
rubber tube on your peep sight because it's spinning around. The strings and cables now are they're to say they're modern kind of sounds stupid, but it is. Like the materials they're made from are so good. Now that I can put a peep sight in my bow and I pull it back and it stays straight. It doesn't twist. Um, so I really think that the string and cable technology has gained us as much, if not more, than anything that we've done on a bow.
So is Prime, speaking of the strings and cables, is Prime going to be carrying that through? That's one of the things that was really neat. I thought really neat is that every other year you can get a free
Yeah.
set of strings and
Yep.
cables for your
Yep.
bow. I mean,
Yep.
that's a huge, I don't know what it's like anymore, but it used to be what, close to $100 to have a bow
It's
with
about
string and cable.
150 to 170 bucks to get a set of strings and cables on your bow.
Yeah. So that's a heck of a deal. And plus it's good warranty. It's good bow maintenance. It's one thing I always tell guys, always make sure you keep your bow out of the sun and the heat and stuff like that. But more than anything, if you really want to have a good efficient bow, always keep a good check on your cables and strings.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
there's
Yeah,
nothing.
but they do. It's strings and cables for life on Prime, in the Rev X series and in the new series. Not quite sure on the sub $1,000 bow. I think we talked about it at the sales meetings last week. That might not be a string and cable forever, but
Sure.
it's going to be, a set or two, just based on the sale price of the bow.
I would think that is the market. If you can take this technology and make something, and I see that because we kind of did this in the call industry. We look at our top end goose call, whether it's our top end duck call, and that was the top of the shelf right there. That was
Mhm.
the uniform that set the standard, and then we took some calls that we kept the same quality and we kept the same sound and everything, but we just changed the material. We changed some things to how we done just so that we could lower that price,
Right.
and we did. We done well. And then we got into the molding line and we worked hard to have our molds made in the States, and then worked hard with our mold guys to make sure that, and it's all about repeating the same process over. It's got to be repetitive, or, it's got to be able to be consistent.
Right.
And which you see in the same thing in archery. But one of the things that, my tagline was when people ask us, do you have a cheaper call? Man, we don't make cheap calls. We make great calls more affordable.
Right.
And I think that is the mantra. Is it mantra? Mantra. Thank you. That's redneck talking for you folks. That's the mantra for bow company. I think today, if you can hit and make that efficient bow, it doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles, but be honest with you guys, and going out there and 20, 30 yards sticking a whitetail,
they shoot just as good.
They shoot just as good.
I hate to say that because I sell high-end bows, but you can get everything you need out of it for not $1,200.
I think
You know,
that's the market. I think if you're the guy that can make that niche and satisfy the average bow hunter out there, there'll still be the guy who, we who wants to wear the
there's
high
always
end
going to be the
clothing.
guy. There's always going to be a consumer for a Lambo or a Corvette. And even though you can't drive it 200 miles an hour on the road, you just know it can do it.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a guy. And I'm one of them. We're always going to have. You want the leading edge of the technology. Maybe you can't even push it to use it to that level, but you know that it's possible.
Yep.
So we've talked offline before, and back in our earlier companies and things, and I've shot 100 yards, shot a lot of 100-yard targets. These guys go out to these total archery challenges, these TAC events, and they're shooting 80, 90, 100 yards. And would we do that in an ethical hunting situation? No, we wouldn't. But the equipment is good enough to do that.
Right.
So when you know that your car can go 200 miles an hour, 60 is no problem. I know when I can shoot 100 yards, 30 is not that big a deal.
No.
So
I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, you and I talked about this, but you can see I'm shooting this whisker biscuit, and I put that whisker biscuit on, and I'm going to tell you what, I've never shot a whisker biscuit. We tuned it, shooting a perfect arrow hole, but I'm shooting at 60. I love the simplicity of it. I love that I don't have to worry. I mean, my drop away, there really wasn't a problem with that. It's just, it freaked me out more than anything was this right here. This freaks me out more and the type of hunting I do, but that right there, it drives me nuts.
The extra piece.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I'm always worried that that.
Listen, there's elitists out there that would never shoot a whisker biscuit. I know 3 or 4 guys that I would consider very good hunters that have switched back over to a whisker biscuit because of the no fail clause. Or you can put a backup one in your bag and stick it on there. It doesn't rely on this cord pulling down this pin so that the rest falls out of the way. And one of my buddies shot it last year, and he's like, at 60 yards, it was an inch different. From his drop away to his whisker biscuit was a 1-inch drop at 60. So, maybe people laugh at you or snicker at you because you're shooting a whisker biscuit because it's not a premium rest. But you know what? It does what it's supposed to do.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you what, I shoot. I'm happy with my shooting. I can't, he didn't have a hard time getting it tuned to shoot a good arrow. It just it works perfect out of that prime bow, and I'll probably never go back. Never say never, but I do love the simplicity, and I have so much confidence in it. I don't know the durability of one. I haven't been able to pull one back with a whitetail in front of me. I haven't used it yet in a quiet woods, and with a deer at 10 yards at 160 inches.
There's still, no matter what you're shooting, whether it's got fleece on it or however you do it, the arrow's still coming back past something. Yeah. So I don't think that biscuit's I don't think it's a bad deal.
No, like I said, it seems quiet. I haven't pulled it in the woods, but my accuracy, I can't. I'm very impressed with the accuracy I'm shooting. I love the simplicity of it, and I love it because I don't have a string there that drives me nuts.
Yep.
And I could see myself on an elk hunt. You have the one bow that you take in, and all of a sudden you fall down some rocks or something. You catch on a heavy branch.
Pop the string out of your table.
Oh yeah, and you're sitting out there with by yourself trying to figure out how to retie a rest out in the woods. Well, what have we got going in broadheads? What are we looking like? So let's talk G5 now.
So honestly, there's nothing different. There's some deals for our for our dealers to be able to make a little bit more money on a couple of different heads. But so what we've come up with, what I've been told from last year, our hunting equipment is taxed. The Pittman-Robertson Act basically it taxes things that you use to hunt with. And broadheads are one of those. So we can look at the tax dollars and we know exactly how big the broadhead market is. Well, last year, G5 was 25% of the broadhead market.
Wow.
So that being said,
That's a big chunk.
it's a huge chunk. And you guys are welcome to go online and see what that number is for the total, and you can know exactly how big G5 is. But since the inception, the Montac has been the number one seller. That's our MIM broadhead, metal injection molded, 3-blade, resharpenable, just the workhorse of the line. It is no longer the best-selling broadhead in our line. The Mega Meat has taken over, and we are taking huge chunks of market share from other open on impact style broadheads, and I won't name any of them, but it doesn't matter. These broadheads are, you've seen them, 2-inch cut, 3-blade. They make them in a bow. They make them for vertical bows. They make them in a crossbow version, and the difference is just the retention of the blades, how tight the blades are retained, because the crossbows speed up so fast. You got to contain those blades a little more. But the Mega Meat is now the number one seller. Open on impact broadheads, I don't know what the market is, but I'm guessing it's probably 70% of the broadhead market in total. But between Mega Meat, Dead Meat, Montec, M3, and Striker, we're 25% of the broadheads sold in the world.
Wow.
So, that's a big chunk. I would say that Mega Meat is probably more popular than what you... I have to watch my P's and Q's. I think it's probably the most popular open on impact on the market, and there's one name that comes up whenever you talk about broadheads, but I think Mega Meat's outselling it.
Yeah.
And what it comes from is just guys shooting deer with them, and it's become almost a cult following. Guys send us pictures, and they send a lot of them we can't even post online because they block them because they're too grotesque. But it's just a really, really sharp. It flies well. They hold together well. They're just, not to be punny, but they're killers. Like they're just a great broadhead, and they do their job.
So that's the mechanical side, right?
Correct.
So what do you say to those guys who shoot the solid broadheads compared, if you were trying to switch someone over to a Mega Meat, or would you not tell them to stay with their solid broadhead? It's two different mindset. It
is. Concept. So I will be completely transparent and tell you that I am a diehard fixed blade guy. I shoot Striker X's and Strikers. So replacement blade, standard old world broadheads. Why do I do it? Well, it's getting kind of hard to not shoot Mega Meats. But I shoot 60 pounds. I got a 28-inch draw. I don't have to worry about angles. I don't have to worry about penetration. I do take time to set up my bows, and I do tune for fixed blade broadhead. So, but that being said, every broadhead in my quiver is not a fixed blade. I still carry a couple of open on impacts, because if I get to Kansas and there's 40-mile-an-hour wind, I'm not shooting a fixed blade. I'm going to switch to a Dead Meat or a Mega Meat. So, how do you tell guys, like, to your question, how do you convince a guy to go one way or the other? I don't think you do. Like, you shoot what you like. And the way I've always explained it, and we might have talked about this in an earlier podcast, I worked a lot of years in retail, and guys would come in, and we're going to go to gun hunters here. Guys would come in and go, "Hey, I'm looking for, I got a 30-06. Let's just go completely generic, right? 30-06. I need a bullet, or, I need a round for my 30-06. The first thing the guy's going to ask you is, what are you hunting? Are you hunting antelope? Are you hunting grizzly bear? Like, that's two different answers. So you got a 30-06. You can shoot a 55 grain saboted bullet to shoot woodchucks, or you can shoot a 210, 220 grain bullet to shoot bear. So within that, there is no answer. What's the perfect bullet? So when guys ask me, well, what's the best broadhead? Well, there's no answer for that. Why do you only shoot one broadhead? Do you only shoot one bullet? No, no one does. So I always carry 3 or 4 fixed blades and a couple of open on impacts, just based on the situation. If it's October 1st and I'm shooting 5 yards and I can't see 20, I'm probably going to be shooting a fixed blade because it's a bad angle. But if I'm out west and I'm going to shoot far and it's going to be windy, maybe an open on impact's the best answer for me.
Right.
So I don't think. So the shorter answer is, I don't think we have to pick. There's enough options out there where you can apply them to your situation.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, we're in the weeds on this one right now, and I'm not picking on anybody, but there has been a movement in archery of this super heavy front of center, cut on contact, 200 grain, single bevel broadheads. Like, people think that when a broadhead goes through a deer that it's drilling a hole. And the reality is that's not how physics works. Once that broadhead hits something, it's going to spin for as far as its energy, but at some point it's going to stop spinning. It's not boring a hole through a deer.
Right.
We're shooting 150-pound animals. We're not shooting, we're not trying to kill engine blocks.
Years ago in the traditional guys talked about heavy up front because we didn't have the speed. It was about getting the
not to mention honestly, it's all
also,
over the place.
Well, exactly. But what made the big difference are these arrows, the carbon arrow. When the carbon arrow came across and guys were able, stick in this heavy weight. So what it was is kind of like the jackhammer, all your weight's down here pounding instead of back behind here. So when you hit, your force and you have all that weight up here is pushing it through. I never found that very good with compounds because I thought they had too much energy pushing that much weight up front. But again, whitetail may be that thick, that what we're shooting through. And these bows are so efficient that,
they're a water balloon with a couple of ribs in the way. We're not hitting anything hard.
And he's, well, what if you hit shoulder? And I said, well, stay the frick away from the shoulder.
Don't aim at the shoulder.
That's what I thought. I said, you know what? You can do everything you try, but there's nothing out there that is going to eliminate everything, No. So, you pick your shots, but man, I tell you what, I can shoot a 40-pound recurve and blow through every whitetail I shoot at. It just depends on the shots. I'll take my 20-yard broad shot, but I'd guarantee you with the cut on impact broadhead and going through that, I could, once it's through the boiler, of course you want 2 holes, for the blood, but it has gone. And I think because it's one thing, it's a niche, and number 2, it depends who's saying it. Someone new might be coming across and someone new is saying this, so someone's jumped on the bandwagon with it. But oh shoot, I'm trying to remember the doctor's name who did all this. He did all the research. Ashby. He did all this research years ago for the broadheads, and it was all with traditional equipment. So he had studied, African game animals, and he studied big game animals. He studied the whitetails and everything. Again, I'm looking at what am I? You said it a lot right there. What am I hunting? I think for what I hunt, that whether it was a mega meat or whether it was a fixed blade, I think that whatever setup, because it all depends about this flying right where I'm shooting and then flying good. An arrow that flies perfect at 55 pounds will outpenetrate a bad flying arrow at 70 pounds.
Oh, for sure.
So, it isn't about the weight. So
Just
when
because the tip hits doesn't
exactly.
mean the arrow's flying straight.
So I'm looking at it, I says, it's just, I just think it's overkill. I think it is. And he's on all the new podcasts and all the new stuff talking. It's like the tree slings. The tree slings have been out for a while. I remember years ago when they came out, but we shot more recurves back then and our compounds were longer. And so I remember when Vicunas told me that he hunted out of a tree sling a lot, but Paul was a crossbow hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm sitting there looking at myself thinking, I could get, but then I looked at the price of these harnesses today. I mean, oh my gosh, they're way up. But then I still got to have a stand for my feet on. I still have to have my climbing sticks to get up into the tree. And then so you put this on, but I said, there's no way I could shoot a recurve out of one. And
What's
that's why
funny about that is that Green's tree saddle, which is the original version of one of the major lines out today, he was a traditional hunter. He actually designed that to shoot a recurve.
really,
Yeah, like he was a recurve hunter. Like that's if you go back into the 80s, late 80s, mid 80s, in any advertising that you see from the Green's tree saddle, again, which is still a current company under a different name, every picture is a guy with a recurve.
well, I'm sitting there thinking I have a 64-inch recurve. I just don't know how I mean, I can't get in every ground blind. I have to have specific ground blind. I mean, you do when you hunt with a recurve, you got to have an 80-inch, close to an 80-inch hub, the height on it, the short, small ones that you like with a compound. There's no way I'd have to sit on my knees and turn my bow.
Well, I mean, think about the fact that there's 30-inch compounds, 28-inch compounds, 32-inch compounds. That recurve 62, 64 inches. It's twice as long.
That's what I'm saying. So we had a friend that he was always about getting every gimmick and gadget that came out. And you could take, and I'm not cutting, I mean, there's probably some of you guys out there, God love you if you can take all your deer antlers and put them in a shoebox. But this guy he can literally, he hunted Lake City, so in Lake City, Michigan. So, he was hunting this all the time.
Forkies and
sugar beets.
Yeah,
the typical Michigan upper northern lowers, sugar beets and little bucks coming in. But he came up and showed up. We all would shoot at least once a week with our bows at the archery club, and we'd shoot the outside course. And they had tree stands back then. It was fun, and but he would always bring something that he had new, and we were all shooting our recurves, and he had this new tree sling. And I looked at this thing and I said, how's it working? I said, you got to get up and you're going to sit. So now you're looking at all three of us are big guys. And Rick was definitely probably 260, 270 type guy, and he finally gets up in that tree. And then I'm playing like the advocate, like I'm the buck walking around. Now and dude, we were almost peeing our pants laughing so hard trying to watch this clumsy guy trying to maneuver his 64-inch recurve and squishing and he was squishing everything out. Then it's just we were laughing so hard, and I said, dude, I would never hunt out of something like that. Maybe today, I've never hunted out of one. Have you used one?
I have not been in a fixed position platform's tree stand in probably 20 years.
Really? So
no,
you use a saddle?
I started on an Anderson buck sling in the mid 90s, transferred over to an actual tree saddle. I actually work for a company now called Tethered, who's kind of restarted the whole tree saddle business in 5 years ago, 2019. But yeah, I only hunt out of a saddle. I
Really?
do not hunt out of a platform. Yeah.
Why is that? Tell me.
Well, the first reason, I guess I don't know. Like, I don't know why I started. It was movement, being able to do different trees, different things. And that's back in the early 90s when there was not a lot of technology in them. But now it's almost to the point where, when like you and I talk about going on a big game hunt, I don't think to ever go on a rifle hunt.
Right.
When I think about going on an elk hunt or a moose hunt or whatever, 100% I'm going to have my bow.
Is that your
Well,
phone?
to me anymore, when I think about hunting on a daily basis, I don't think about tree stands at all. I just sit in my saddle. Um, a One of the main reasons is you can hunt a lot of different trees, and it doesn't matter about the angle or any of that. Yes, you still have to have steps. You don't need a platform. It makes it nicer, but you don't need one. I just started hunting off a platform 2 years ago. Up until then, I was always on top of my sticks. Um, but I don't need 10 tree stands or 12 tree stands or 5 tree stands. Like my tree stand is on me. You know, we still put up our sticks here. So we'll go up and set up, 4 or 5 spots on the property and put sticks up, but we just climb up and hook our saddle on. You
Really?
know, there's no tree stand there.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what interests me, what you just said. Again, I'm old school, so I'm getting educated here. Um, that's one thing that I find a problem here in Iowa. I mean, it is really tough to find the right tree. Now, if you're in
Mhm.
Michigan and Ohio, like Indiana is a perfect. Indiana
Great
is
trees
like
are fine.
there's straight trees all over in Indiana. Down
Yep.
here, we have so many knotted, curly, twisted oaks, twisted trees down here that in our gullies we have washouts, and the washouts are tough to hunt because the deer, you got to have a certain place we can cross because some of these might be 8, 10 feet straight down, then straight back up, and we have
Mhm.
washouts, and it's all hills, and then you get on these gnarly trees, and I get in the perfect spot. I spend more time trying to find the perfect tree that's not there.
Well, and
Uh,
then and you settle on a tree that's acceptable rather than hunting in the right spot.
exactly. So I can see
Well,
right now you just educated me to that tether. Now that would be something, I don't.
my biggest issue when I hunt is I pick trees that are too small. So if I move around, the top of the tree shakes. That's how little the trees are. So in Kansas, um, you got these black locusts and you got all kinds of different kinds of trees there. But when we hunt Kansas, Iowa, we're really only like 8 feet off the ground. Like
Really?
we're super low. Well, think about the fact that you're coming off the tree at an angle. Deer just don't pick you. It's not. You got a tree stand is a 90-degree angle from the tree. It's very easy to see those hard angles in nature because nothing has them, right? Like Mother Nature doesn't do 90 degrees. It's, some variation of that. Um, but A, deer don't pick you. B, they're way more comfortable than sitting on a damn seat for 10 hours. Um, you only need
Gonna.
one.
That's what I was going to ask you because I mean you're a hefty guy like me, and it's
That
not.
means I'm fat, guys.
No, we're healthy. We're husky men. Husky men. We're husky size.
So I'm 245 pounds and I'm 5'8". So I'm not built like a bullet for sure. But no, I can sit in a tree saddle. I can sit in a saddle all day, no problem. I can move around. I can move my feet. I can adjust my height. I can sit. I can stand. I can lean. It's much more comfortable for me than a stand.
Do they make different sizes for the bigger guys or no? It's
They
just one
do.
size.
They pretty much everybody makes a standard and an XL. We're definitely in the XL category.
Yeah.
Over 38 inches of waist and up needs to be in an XL. But the other thing that I don't think
Is it
people
like that
realize,
underwear company that gives you a lot of ballroom?
yeah, you got some trunk space. The other thing is you're always connected to the tree. So when I put up, I'm going to run through a scenario of putting up a stand. I get my sticks, I put them up, I put my lineman's belt on, I climb the tree, my lineman's belt's on. When I get
Right.
up to the top, I put my tether up, hook up to my bridge,
Now,
which I'm connected
you
again
hook? You have to be to a branch, or can you hook around
no,
the trunk
around the
itself?
tree, just around the tree.
Really?
Um, so when I get up, from the time I leave the ground until I get up to my spot, I am 100% connected to the tree. So even if you take a safety line, you put up a ladder stand, what do you have to do? You got to climb that ladder before it's ratcheted to the tree. You might have some lines tying it, the cross lines in the back, but someone's got to go up that ladder stand without a safety belt, and there's no way to tie yourself to the tree. That's
It's
freaking
usually my
dangerous.
wife. I put my wife on that job.
Yeah. So even if you hook up a safety line, someone's got to go up the tree first to put the safety line up. When I hunt, and I actually have two lineman's belts because I promised Lisa that I would never not be connected to a tree. So even if I'm climbing a tree and I have a limb, I have my safety belt on. I take my second one out, put it above the limb, then take the bottom one off, and I'm always connected to the tree.
Oh my
I
gosh,
can't
you are
fall.
really safe.
I can't fall. I'm always connected to the tree. And
You want to know something embarrassing, dude? I'm I've been hunting. I'm not even gonna give my age. I have never ever in my life wore a safety belt,
that's
and
well,
and I know that is not.
well, I have a buddy of mine. Well, he's a friend of a friend, but we've hunted together quite a bit. Um, he's got a really cool 4x4 wheelchair
Yeah,
because he didn't wear a safety belt.
yeah. See, that's I gotta get one. I gotta wear one. I know it. I just old
I feel
school.
if I'm in a tree stand, a ladder stand, a fixed position stand, I always feel like I'm falling because in my saddle, I'm always under tension. Like I'm always,
Right.
I have that tension on the tree. Um, and and just like everything else, like we talked about crossbows and vertical bows. Some guys are fine with a crossbow. Some guys think it's not hunting if you don't shoot a traditional bow. It's the same thing with saddles. I don't care if you hunt out of a fixed position platform or a climber or a ladder stand. I prefer to hunt out of a saddle, and I can defend it. Why I like it, but I don't need to. It's a different tool. When I think about deer hunting, if I close my eyes at night and I think about going to Kansas, I'm sitting in my saddle. I don't own a tree stand. I don't own one.
Well, you know what? You struck me when you just said the first thing. It was about you can almost hunt any tree, being able to hunt the right spot. I mean, that's more important to me than. And I'm like I said, I'm not. I've just my memory of watching somebody who looked like. He looked terrible. He looked like somebody was all thumbs trying to hunt out of something, and so that memory sticks in my head.
Sure.
But I could see, if watching it. I mean, because there's so many people using them today. Because it's not easy work putting a tree stand. I'm telling you, the older
Mm-mm.
you get, I used to be able.
Worst thing in the world.
Oh man, if I put up 2, 3, 4 tree stands when I was younger in one day, that was a heck of a workout. I was strong. Today, if I put up 1 to 2 stands, I am whipped for the rest of the day, and
So
that's because I still do them right. You're trying to cut. Putting a
yeah,
tree stand up is hard work, and then cutting everything. And then sometimes we're detrimental because we cut too much, and we open up. I'm like you. I kind of like to leave as little up there, or I mean, take away as little as possible because I don't want to
mm-hmm.
disrupt. And I think deer do, and especially when they have a home core, they can remember it doesn't whether he thinks of it. He just knows when he's in
Do
something that
you
something
think?
stalking him is different and it catches his attention. And I'll
Do
tell
you
you
think if you walk in your living room and someone moved your lamp, do you think you'd notice?
dude, I'll tell you, this is a true story. This is years ago. I was blessed. I was Roger Rothar, who made the snuffer broadheads, took me under his wing years ago. He's the guy who got me shooting traditional, but I learned everything on whitetails from Roger, and I spent a couple years hunting with him. I mean, a lot, and learned a lot from him. But I'll never forget. I was hunting this secluded woodlot it was all surrounded by CRP. It was like the hub of all this going on around, and all these deer would come from the CRP and into this woods, and it was a great setup. But I remember when I sat up in there, and I was probably 30, 40 yards in this woodlot, but I remember I cut a sapling, probably like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we used to do is always try to cut them as low as we can, and I always take mud. And if I cut anything on a tree, I'd take dirt and mud, and we'd
Block the
rub that
white.
cut, because you never wanted to advertise to, where somebody walk through the woods, they see all that fresh cut trees, they know, hey, someone's got a tree stand. They're going to be looking for your tree stand. Not that you're trying to hide it, is that I don't advertise where I'm hunting. Don't like to anyway. But anyway, I'll never forget this. So the first morning into the stand, I did forget to put the dirt, but it was only sticking that high off the bottom of the ground. I'd cut all that off. And I remember watching a doe and a button buck on the edge of the corn and walking the edge of the woods going sideways to me. The button buck was behind her. I kid you not. He stopped and he looks into the woods. He looks directly underneath my tree and comes trotting all the way in, sticks his nose up to that freaking sapling that I left, which I got trees all around me. And he goes up to that sapling and he sniffs it and trots back up to the woods and catches up with his mother. And I went,
he noticed.
No freaking way. And that was a button buck. It made me very aware and to how in tuned these animals are to their surroundings. And this was an immature animal. This wasn't the animal with the master degree that we trained after. This is the immature guy who walks, and I can, and you won't convince me otherwise because I know what I watched and saw. So you're right. They do pay a lot of attention. So I try to be very careful in taking out what I have to take out because they seem to pick up on that quick. And I've been hunting more and more out of ground blinds, and not because I'm too old to get up in the trees. It's just because I'm having a hard time finding the right trees. And here's another thing, and maybe because it's using modern equipment, but I have the ozonics, and and I've used it. This probably be my 4th year. And I've used it, and I had variable results in trees. I mean, it's worked and then not worked. And one of the questions I always had when I talked to my friends who used them, I said, "Hey, well, how does mature deer react to it?" And they're all fine. I've had all kinds of deer in my field and stuff. And I'll tell you, through 4 years of studying and really observing, they tell you, the different settings to use when you're hunting out of the tree, and what setting you use when you're in a ground blind, and each one is a lower setting. What I found, there really isn't in the ground blind, there might be, but up in the tree, I found that there's not really a one setting for all because you have different winds. And the time that I've had very calm wind, maybe a 3 to 4 to 5 mile an hour wind, and you got that friggin' ozonics on, there's times because but because it's not being pushed out, it's starting to hang, and then I can start smelling the ozone. I can start smelling stuff. And where so I'd watch does with fawns or a good buck come in, and all of a sudden you'll see them hit that, and they'll lick their first reaction, because it isn't man, they'll sit there and they'll put lick their nose, and then I've seen them just kind of back right up and walk away. Where if it was my scent, I get that they blow up. An immature deer would walk in, smell it, lick his nose. As soon as he happened to step past that scent line, I'm cool, and keep going. Where that mature deer doesn't forget, because it's a strange smell.
I'll tell you, like, one of my better deer, it's right there, from Ohio. I was running ozone. I was on the top shelf of a hill. I was on the bench, and the deer should not have come from behind me, but he 100% came from behind me. When I first saw this deer, he was 25-ish yards straight downwind, level with me in the tree, because he came over the top. And obviously it's rut, so they get a little bit distracted, right? There are other things on their mind. He never twitched. Like, the wind was probably 8 to 10 right in my face, and he was 25 yards level with me behind me, and never Not
Never caught you scent. Was you in a ground
nothing.
blind?
No, I was in a tree stand.
Wow.
I was in my saddle, but he came over the top. So when he got to the top, he was even with me. Like he was right there, level, like eye to eye, 25 yards, wind right in his face.
Oh,
And let's see. I don't know if I can show it to you. Yeah.
oh, that's that little 80-inch deer you killed.
Yeah, that's not an 80 incher. That one's
That's,
about 167.
that's a dandy. Yeah,
So yeah,
80 inch was just the one side.
yeah. So yeah, so I always run ozone. It's one of these things, right? Whether it's ozone or it's generic, scent, wildlife research, soap, whatever. You're never gonna be 100%. But if I can get 5% and then 5% and 5% and 5%, then I got a 20% better chance. That's worth it to me.
Everything. And what I was trying to say is I found that when on those days in my stand where I had low winds, I'd crank and back it off. So I
Yep.
didn't have that heavy of ozone that was
Right.
hanging out there, and vice versa. If it was super windy,
You can smell it. Like
absolutely. If it was super windy, I would crank it up. But one thing I found in a ground blind that if I place it on the downwind side facing the way the wind is blowing to, I've been almost and on the light setting, I've been almost scent free. And I've had deer, bucks, and everything in front of me. Like I said, hit them with the arrow. And that's why I started hunting more of a pop-up blind, put my blind in and thatching it up. And I'm telling you, I see the same thing with Don and Candy Kiski here. If you watch a lot of their videos, they have gone to a heck of a lot more using ground blinds in cornfields. My biggest, that 182 incher I shot 2 years ago. I saw him October 14th. They picked two thirds of the cornfield, left a third up. I lost all the good trees to hunt in. I went in and took a pop-up blind back into the corn, chopped it 10 by 10, thatched it full of corn, waited for the bear man, waited for the wind. I had did a little video saying how I found this field, how I set up to be, and how I would go completely out of my way and walk the cornfield, and walk the corn rows all the way into that, right to the back door of my blind, sneak in, and I'm back in off the edge. And those deer were coming out. And I had a buck just past my window, a yearling buck, 6 point or whatever, was chasing a doe and her fawn. And then I did this video talking about how the barometric, and I saw this buck and why I set up the way I did, shut off that video, and 15 minutes later, I shot that buck right through the heart. But I've learned to trust in ground blinds for the fact is I can contain my scent, which I have a hard time.
Contain a lot of it. Yeah.
Which I'm having a hard time because we hunt. It's, people think of Iowa's flat, but I live, it's pretty hilly and it's just ravines and gullies and
ditches
it's the
everywhere.
Worst. Oh, it's the worst thing trying to control scent. And if you have a good sized deer population, and you might be fine here, but sure enough, sooner or later, you'll hear some old doe behind you and you're like, ah.
We probably need to have a Q&A session or talk about the saddles. I think a lot of people judge them like, they see someone in them, a couple of years ago or 10 years ago. Just like we talked about crossbows, it's an effective hunting tool. And I guess because I've been doing it for so long, I kind of forget that people have questions about it, like,
yeah.
Well, is it comfortable? How do you stand? How do you shoot? How do you move? Maybe that's a follow-up that we need to.
Dude, that is definitely a follow-up because for me, that was huge. You got me pumped up because that has been one of my challenges here is that we just talked about. It's about being in the right spot.
Yeah.
And what happens is too many people start trying to hunt the right tree, and the right tree isn't always in the right spot.
Well, listen, when you got a climber, what 30% of the trees, 20% of the trees?
Yeah.
You can climb.
Right.
So you make concessions. You go, well, this is where I want to be. And all of us have wandered around the woods, leaving scent everywhere, trying to convince ourselves that the tree we can climb is the one we want to be in when we know it's not the tree we want to be in.
Right.
I don't have that problem anymore. I haven't had that problem in 20 years. So
Well, I can't wait.
if it can support my weight, I can get in it.
Well, let me, for our viewers out there, what website do you recommend for they to go to check it?
Tetherednation.com.
Feathernation.com.
It's T here, I'll spell it for you.
Oh, there we go. TETHRD.
RD. Yep.
Tethered Nation. I will be on that and checking it out. That is awesome.
Yeah, so we got right now we have 3 series of saddles. We have a Menace, a Phantom, and a Lockdown. Varying degrees of price. They also make the best, I think, and I'm jaded. The best climbing sticks you can buy are called Skeletors. It's a 4-section stick, costs like $200. They hold onto the tree with Amsteel. For those of you guys that don't know, Amsteel is a material. It's very, very strong for its size. So our sticks, or their sticks, don't have a strap and a buckle. It's just a rope, and it's got a connector. Just go to tetherednation.com and look at it online.
Because that's another thing I find a problem for me, because I'm like, I pick bigger trees, especially trunks, and of course, to get up to here,
giant cottonwoods, yeah,
and to cover me. And the problem with a lot of the sticks and the climbing sticks with the belts and the straps, they're not near long enough.
Well, you can
basically made for trees like this. And if I want to,
because if you climb a 30-inch cottonwood, it's kind of different than climbing a 14-inch oak tree.
Exactly, and you're getting up there, so that's kind of cool. But
there's a lot of discussion, that can be had about the saddles and things. But I will say that some of the guys geek out and they maybe go too far, but they're pushing, for better stuff like this Amsteel material and things of that nature that, even guys that are using regular platforms can take advantage of. Sure. You're not carrying. So we make a product. They make a product called a 1 stick. Well, it's an 18-inch stick with 2 steps on it, and it weighs 1 pound. Like, you can carry 4 sticks that weigh 4 pounds total.
Wow.
I mean, the buckles almost weigh 1 pound. Getting rid of those buckles. So, yeah, there's tons of content on YouTube and online. Even if you don't think you ever wanted to hunt out of a saddle, I would say you need to try it before you make that decision.
For our audience, real quick then, because you hunted tree stands, you hunted the saddles, what it would be a negative of hunting a saddle compared to a tree stand, or there is none? I mean, what would you say?
So the negative, I would say, is the learning curve. So you need practice. If you have a platform, you can do everything you can do in a tree stand. And the platforms are, 12 by 10 by 12, 10 by 16 inches.
I do break dancing. I do break dancing in my tree stand. Will I be able to do break dancing?
Yes, you can clearly break dance on that. Yes.
That's important.
So the negative is the learning curve. You need to learn how to set it up. You need to learn where to put your tether, where to put your knot, so you can be comfortable. There is some adjustment there. Other than that, I'd be hard pressed to say there's a negative.
Awesome. Tetherednation.com. We got prime bows, G5. G5 what's the G5 website?
G5outdoors.com.
G5outdoors.com. Prime, is it primeoutdoors.com?
Yeah,
too?
you just put prime bows in and it'll pop up.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed listening to this. We're going to go. I think he is right. Britt is right. We need to do another section. We're going to get in more to the tree saddle deal. I think we need to get something where we can get outside. And,
we definitely need to. There needs to be a little pre-planning there so we can set up, how the platform is. What are you doing with your rope? Just to get people comfortable with the fact. And the one thing that people always ask me, I say, well, I hunt from a saddle. They go, oh, you just hang from a tree? No, I'm under control. I'm not just dangling from a tree, So But we can shoot 360 degrees. The tree's in front of you. There's a lot of arguments. That
I got to see this. You got me so pumped up. And if you can get your 245-pound butt up there's no reason I can't. If you can do it, I can do it. I can do it. So we're going to set that for the next podcast, folks. You heard that here. I think that, like you said, we'll have to do a little bit of homework, but, and that's treathernation.com. We got Prime Bows, primeoutdoors.com. We got G5outdoors.com. Britt, I appreciate your time again, and
yeah, man,
everything we're talking about. Looking forward to the new line of 2024 bows. I sure love my Revics. Folks, you get a chance, go out and check out Prime. But if you get a chance, also, you want to check out the world's best duck and goose calls, turkey calls, and predator calls, you go to legendarygearusa.com and check out our podcast. Check out, please like it, subscribe. Also, go to YouTube. I got plenty of instructionals there for you guys who are getting new into the duck and new into goose. And we just did an article with Wildfowl Magazine on the art of hunting with a cut-down duck call, bark 'em down. You get a chance, check that out. But legendarygearusa.com. Britt, again, I appreciate it. Folks, stay safe. Always remember, may the good Lord
wear a